Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bent Axle's first interview ever. I'm your host and new owner of the Bent Axle, Eric Ingram. I have with me today Mike Klinowski, who is, amongst other things, head coach for the Chicago Bears wheelchair rugby team, co-host of the Behind the Axle podcast of no relation, and last but not least, secretary of the United States Quad Rugby Association. Mike,
Just
thanks.
now. Hey, big news, big news.
Okay. Yep.
The United States Wheelchair Rugby Association. We had the vote this morning. It's official. We are the USWRA, and we'll be rolling out the changes soon.
That's exciting. And for anyone who's watching this, this is happening on Saturday, August 29th. I have no clue what time or day it is where you are now, but you will probably already know about that change by the time you watch it. But that's exciting. That, just happened today. So big news. I mean, I was served on the board with you previously, and we were unable to do it in the 4 years that I was a part of it. So that's awesome to hear. But anyways, I'm supposed to be making you introduce yourself. So let's do that.
It is exciting news. I'm Mike Klinowski. I coach the wheelchair rugby squad here in Chicago. I've been doing that for, a bunch of years now. I don't even remember when I started. But I've got a good squad here. Really excited about what we're going to do in the future. And last 4 years or so, been with the board of directors. Lucky enough to have worked with you, Eric. And
the future history will be the judge of that.
You'll just have to write the book.
One thing at a time.
I've just been a fan of the sport since I was in PT school, and I've worked with the Ohio Buckeye Blitz doing some fundraising, and moved to Chicago and joined up the squad here. And after a few years, realized I wanted to do more, and joined the board, doing Behind the Axle with Chris Cook and Dave Mengen, and get to hang out with you, Eric. So this is pretty great.
You're already buttering me up, and we're like not even 5 minutes into this. All right, I like it. I appreciate it. We'll have him on again next week so that he can continue this. We'll see. TBD. Okay, so I know you're both the coach of Chicago and the USWRA secretary, but for now, let's focus on the club side for a bit. Chicago being a low D2, maybe high D3 team, what do you feel is the biggest problem with wheelchair rugby at that level?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this because this comes up a bunch of times. Like the D1 is a different story. Those folks are upper echelon. Almost everyone has a USA player. The D2, D3 are folks that are trying to figure things out. They're developing teams, developing players, developing staffs. And I think what it really comes down to is consistency in your staffing. Is that if you find a group of folks that are really committed to the team and are consistently there, I think you're going to find more success that way. I think that the success that we found in Chicago is really because we've had, not to pat on the back too much, myself, I've been around. Martha Smith has been on the staff, and we've had a consistent equipment manager in either Dave Chuboff or Art Kent. And that makes a difference because then your team knows that they've got folks to rely on every single practice. They know those practices are going to happen. There's going to be structure. There's going to be one voice or multiple voices that command that respect of the group and really work to create a united effort. I think that without that, it's really hard to be a player coach. It's exceptionally hard. Anyone who's done it knows that that's true. And I think that it's too hard to do both at the same time, and it pulls people in a different way.
So for teams that might not have the steady support staff that you mentioned, what would you, let's say you just entered that team and, what would you do to try to get them to that level?
As in to like get more staff or consistency with that?
So you just started a team, right?
Okay.
You've got athletes, maybe a few of them. Who knows if they know what they're doing? But you've got a staff member, maybe. How do you get that to a sustainable model? How do you get it so that you can have weekly practices? How do you get it so that you know that there's support there consistently?
I think it's about getting therapists. I mean, honestly, those are the folks that really get pulled in. They've got something that draws them into adaptive sports already. So getting young therapists as they're getting started up, even therapy students, get them while they're graduating from school, and get them while they're full of energy and all the things that you need. They don't have the time commitments that a more experienced therapist might have. It's really about getting those people to come back again and again and again. And if you got to hand out candy and donuts, you got to do it. But just do something to make it worthwhile. And not that I want people to like give their souls out to this, but you have to make those folks feel appreciated at first. Some people are just gluttons for punishment. I know that like when I started up, it took a while for me to get any traction, but I still wanted to keep coming back because it was important enough to me already. But if someone is coming out there and they don't necessarily have that commitment level, you've just got to keep again and again reminding them how important they are to your program, and they will come back. Like all it takes is just a few things, and
Yeah.
they're happy campers.
So the moral of the story is treat it like it's like a college club and have free pizza, and then you're good to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh. Yeah.
All
Make
right.
it worthwhile.
Cool. Well, we'll have to get a pizza delivery service or company to sponsor this, and then we can just roll them right into the wheelchair rugby community. So looking at the current situation going on around the world with COVID and everything at a standstill, how has this affected your team and your work relating to wheelchair rugby?
Well, I think our team, since it's sponsored by a larger organization, the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab is our primary sponsor. They do so much for us. But they have guidelines as to when they want to get people back into sports. And we're kind of under those guidelines. We like, no matter if the league gives us the go ahead, it doesn't matter, because if they say we can't have practices, we can't have practices, as in Shirley Ryan. So I understand that. So we're trying to find other ways of working on building up our team. So we're doing video chats, we're doing some tape reviews, we're doing coaching sessions. I was lucky enough to be invited to Gumby's coaching clinic earlier this year. And so I'm trying to apply those things to our sessions. And so hopefully, like, if we can't do things together physically, we can get together and make ourselves smarter players so that when it's time to get back on the court, we're a better team already. And I think, honestly, this will work to our advantage. You can make people push, but there's only so far you can push them if they're not smart players. And so we're trying to make everyone a really smart player. And there's some excellent folks on our team, but we can all do better.
No, that's great. And, I've always known and said, probably to a level of annoyance, that a smart player will beat a fast player any day.
Absolutely.
Speed will only get you to the other court. It won't, other end of the court, it won't get you through the goal line. And so definitely appreciate that. And I look forward to outsmarting you on the court next season. But so when you are back on the court during competition and preparing for competition, what is your coaching strategy and philosophy? Tell me all your secrets.
Oh, all my secrets. So I, I think I try and model other coaches I've seen along the way. I think that it's taken a long time for me to get comfortable with coaching the sport, just because my knowledge base isn't directly in wheelchair time. Back and forth, all over, upside down. For me, I was an endurance athlete, so knowing position sports is different for me. And I think that led to a lot of frustration and mixed signals for me as a coach. But I think that, calming things down and really being able to focus on the things that we can improve as a team, things that are feasible, challenges that are just above where we are, and getting people to focus on those goals and making them realistic. But really being, I think the thing I'm getting at is being quieter on the sport, on the court, but being more helpful when I do speak, and being pointed and direct. So I'm going to continue to try and be a better coach out there, and maybe you won't hear me as much, but if you do hear me, it better be freaking awesome. Hopefully it'll be the smartest thing I ever say.
Well, here's to hoping. So when you are approaching this philosophy, like is this a team-wide thing, or do you have to adjust it per athlete?
Definitely per athlete. We've got so many different folks that have different learning styles and different ideas of what they want to do with the sport. And I think that, and I didn't get to this with your last question, but really it is about handing over a lot of the responsibility to the players themselves. It's like, this will be what they want it to be. And I'm not going to do the things that kind of push people to do things that they're not interested in doing. It's like, if they want to play at a D2 level, then they're going to be out there pushing this summer. You don't need me checking in on you every week and telling you what to do. If there's folks that are learning the sport for the first time, I expect them to, with guidance, to be able to look over tape and stuff and figure out what the patterns are for their position. So yeah, it's going to be individualized, but overall, I think the theory is unified across the team, is that if we want more, we've got to demand more of ourselves. And it's less about thinking that it's just going to happen. It's about that personal accountability. And I hope that that's something that my guys and gals internalize as we get this season going.
Do you have any difficulties melding the individual goals with the team goals?
I think that's a hard question, because everyone says that they want to be a good D2 team, but then you don't always see the
I don't think Phoenix is saying that.
What was that?
I don't think Phoenix is saying that.
No. I think that, yeah, I find it that the team, when called out amongst themselves, like the entire team is there together, everyone's going to be like, yeah, we want to be that D2 squad. But yeah, things don't back it up. So what do you do to make that happen?
You don't have to have the answer too.
Yeah, you make it look exciting enough to be on that court at that time. And, while your A squad is out there, be whispering in the ears of the guys and gals who are on the sideline and be like, is this what you want? If this is what you want, I can help guide you there. Mm-hmm. And the rest is on you, but I'm going to try and give you as many tools as possible to meet your individual goals. And then there are folks that just come out, once a month and do their thing, and bless it. We're not going to turn you away. You might not get as much attention, but we love to have everyone out there who can make it out there.
Nice. I know that we've had issues on teams I've been on matching individual goals with team goals. And so, the last few years, at the beginning of each season, we basically had a meeting. It's like, okay, what do we want to do this year as a team, right?
Yeah.
If it's a year we want to challenge for a national title, then we work towards that. We train harder for those who, do it optionally. We bring in an import, something like that. If it's a rebuilding year, we focus on working the fundamentals, getting players up to speed that maybe don't get as much play time during a competitive season, and really work to get people up to the same level that might not be there. And of course, there's the flip side that you have issues with the higher level players having to maintain that level of competitiveness or that level of skill while also balancing, playing with players that might not be there. And so, long way to say, I get the problem, and I don't think that there's necessarily a silver bullet that can solve it. So
Yeah.
I think if your team is large enough to have two teams, break down into a competitive, non-competitive, or developmental competitive, however you want to say it, I think that's an ideal circumstance, but obviously not one that is realistic for most teams.
Yeah. We get a significant amount of funding from our sponsor, but that pretty much says that we're going to one tournament per month and we're bringing the whole squad. And so that leads to some butthurtedness, because I just did that. Everyone wants to get out there and be the star when it comes down to that moment to show it. But it's like, I've been in a situation where, like, as an athlete, I was a C stringer. I was like third row, and I made it important enough to myself to work on everything I could to be a better athlete. And of course, there were like mental and physical limitations to what I could actually do. But I came out a much better swimmer and runner when I focused on the things that I could control. And I was just genuinely motivated by watching the people in front of me. I wanted that as much. And I think that, and this isn't necessarily going to be the most popular thing I say, that sometimes, and I don't think this is unique to our community,
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes people expect to just be given something, it goes all the way down to like Pee Wee baseball, is that, my kid, we spent $400 on getting my kid into this league, and we're here for every practice and we're here for every game, and he's not starting. Why not? Because it's freaking sports. And that's just what happens, is that you're either on top or you're working towards the top. And if you're not working on getting towards the top, then that's fine. But at that point, you shouldn't really complain as much. So
I think there's a lot of expectation setting that needs to go into it at the personal level too. I think there's definitely a subset of people that don't match up the reality with expectations. I think there's a lot of people that think they're going to be a superstar that just aren't, and communicating that without having them completely quit is sometimes difficult. I'm saying that from not being the most gentle person when telling people things.
No hugs.
No hugs, especially now in the COVID era. But I get it. So shifting to your role as USWRA secretary, that's going to be weird for a while.
It's kind of hard, John. Yeah.
Yeah. If you could snap your finger right now and have one thing come true, what is that one thing that you would do to get the sport as a whole to the next level? And then, kind of tell me what that next level looks like.
Well, I think that's something that, we talked about like when you were president, and it's probably been the dream of almost every athlete in the league at one point or another. It's like, I want to be on gosh darn Sports Center. I want to be on TV. I want this sport to be a legitimate mainstream sport that people are tempted to put money on. for criminy's sake. Like, let's make this really exciting. Let's make this something where America or the rest of the world is like, dude, have you seen this? It is unreal. And I think it is the best sport out there. And I think that if I were to snap my fingers, it would be to make us a mainstream televised sport. And I think that there's ways that we're working on that. I think that one of the first steps, honestly, and this sounds ridiculous, is just a simple name change of the league is a step towards mainstreaming. Is that we want to make sure that everyone knows that we're the same sport as what you saw on NBC at noon in 2016, one of the greatest games ever played. And we want you to be looking for that next game. And I think that, things like doing more live stream events, maybe creating a premier league for the sport, so that the best of the best are really coming together more frequently. And it's not just at nationals, but it's in September in Chicago. We're going to hypothetically put together a big event where multiple teams are playing in Grant Park or Millennium Park, and people are just walking up and down the street and going in crowds to watch this, and that's televised, and that there's 5 other events easily to look at in the year where people can look forward to seeing this. I mean, we've seen what happened with like poker. It's poker. And all of a sudden, it's like, I wouldn't say all of a sudden. It took a while for it to build momentum, but it's something that is like
on TV.
On TV all the time. Like, I bet you right now, if I turned on the TV, I could find some live poker event. And
well, to be fair, there's not many other sports going on right now. So, I mean, if you consider it a sport to begin with, but it is on ESPN, so we'll give it a little bit of a thing. No, I've been a huge proponent for a professional wheelchair rugby league for a long time now. I think, you and I had talked about it 4+ years ago about, renting a venue out, hiring a very high quality recording company to actually do high quality broadcast recordings, and then you play out a tournament over the weekend, and then you air those games over a long period of time. I think that's one way to do it. Another way would be to have a legitimate league where you have, 4 to 8, 8-person teams that actually has a draft, and they get paid a little bit of money, and they have specific events. Maybe if there's any nearby, you don't have a tournament, you have legitimately one game where it's just like professional basketball or anything like that. If you look at the professional sports, very few of them operate in a tournament style. Of course, that's because they have the budget to be able to fly teams around the country, one step at a time. But I think until we can have really high level premier games where it's like, this is the one, right? It's not just the championship of this tournament that's been going on all weekend and you're not rugbyed out by the end of it. Like, this is the game, buy your ticket, come watch it on TV, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I see as like the ultimate next step or final step in allowing it to become a mainstream sport.
Totally agree. I think that it's something that honestly Gumby has been working on. Like, he's got the foundation for this, like with the Vegas tournament that he's been doing, is that you're bringing out the best of the best, whether it's Canadian national team, Australia, Japan, bringing in some developmental players to put together an American team and mix them up with USA players and doing things like that. I mean, that is the foundation of what we're talking about. And if we can use that as a model, and if we can do something with that, and we've got the technology and the money to really build this up, I think it can turn into something. I think we're leaps and bounds ahead of where we were, 10 years ago as a sport. I think the league itself has done some good organization, that it's got people in specific roles that are doing good things to build up the sport. Um, there's
Way
a lot
better
to that.
leadership than it had a couple months ago.
What is that?
Way better leadership than it had a couple months ago. I don't know who the last president was, but that guy's probably a jerk.
Oh my God, what a
So
jerk.
is the USWRA doing anything strategically now to work towards that?
Yeah. So I'm gonna do some name dropping here for a few minutes here.
Okay.
Dr. Mike Cottingham has been phenomenal with making sure that that teams that are building up, you know, whether they're in Pennsylvania or in New Orleans, haven't heard of a team down there in a while, or Arkansas, things like that. He's trying to build the league up like 2 or 3 teams at a time, and also working on putting together something like a wheelchair depository so that developing teams can get a little foundation under their keisters before they get grant money to buy their own chairs. It takes a process. I mean, there's a process involved. It takes a few years, and where are you going to get those chairs from? And I think that it goes back to, and this is something that will come up again and again every time I talk about my feelings about the league and where it's been and where it could be, is that what are we doing to support this league other than merely, you know, holding on to board positions until someone else comes along? Are we doing something to actually push this league forward and give people something back for their $800 a year? You know, I look at Daniel Curtis. Guy is a fundraising monster. He's doing great. He's getting money in the organization. Sid Christian, and I'll even go back to Deb Olson, did a phenomenal job of making sure we are in a financial position that we can do things like build a new website, or hand out grants and support clinics and all those sorts of things. And even the new find with Noah Courier, I know he's got big goals for the finances of this league. I think that all those folks are doing a phenomenal job. And I would be remiss if I didn't throw Dave Mengen's name out there. He does a nice job of making sure that our league does not fall into disarray and chaos by keeping things together. But really, it's a lot of folks that really are stepping into defined roles. And I think that as long as we're all working on those things and we're working hard on those things, our league will push forward. And if we really push hard, then I think that we will see a lot of success, and we'll see the goals that all of us have. We're going to meet them and hopefully beat them.
So in pushing the league forward, let's assume everything goes well.
Yeah.
Where do you see the league in 5 years, and where do you see the league in 20 years?
Okay, this is
assuming they haven't cured spinal cord injury by then.
They're working real hard.
They should.
So in 5 years, and these are some things we're working on, and I want to make sure that I'm not making promises. These are my goals for the league.
Disclaimer, this is all his personal opinion. It does not represent any organization he's involved with, except it probably does.
It probably does.
But that is a very loose disclaimer that may or may not hold in court. But go ahead. Yeah, sure.
So I want us to have online scoring. I want us to have, I want us to get rid of score sheets. I want everything to be uploaded right away. We all have electronic records. I want us to have real-time scoring. I want in the next 5 years to have at least 5 or 6 tournaments that are being live streamed. And I don't mean like just me standing on the sideline. I mean, I really like that teams do this, and I think it's the best thing we've got going right now. But I want us to have like full court, like recording. I want us to have commentary and real life scoring for at least 5 or 6 tournaments. And, you know, those would start off as big tournaments, you know, whether it's Rugby Rave or Vegas or Tampa Invitational, Demolition Derby, all those things. Best of the West, hopefully it'll be back soon, and Beast of the East. Those are tournaments that need to be shown, and we need to have out there so that people can really see what we're doing and doing it consistently, so that it's not just, you see something on the message board on Facebook. Hey, is this going to be live streamed?
Well, you
What was
go
that?
to bentaxle.com for the live score ticker at the bottom, and the live stream. Yeah, no, I'm all for that. So
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's your let's call that your 5-year goal. Basically,
5-year goal.
automating and digitizing how the sport is administered, let's say.
Yeah.
What do you see in 20 years?
In 20 years, full-blown mainstream. Like, we should be, I don't know what's going to happen with function and the way the game is played and strategy and all those things. That's hard to predict.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that, like, we still need to be on the cutting edge in 20 years. I think that there was a time, and this is not me pointing fingers at all. I think there's a time where, yes, we came out with one of the first websites for quad rugby back in the day. And then as the sport has evolved into wheelchair rugby, we've kind of sat back and said, hey, we pretty much started all this, which technically we didn't, but we were a huge component of why the sport is known as well as it is. But what I would love to have happen is I walk down the street and someone says to me, oh, Chicago Bears wheelchair rugby. It's like, I saw you guys playing in Vegas last year. You guys were phenomenal. Your new high pointer, primo. I've got money riding on your entire squad. And things like that, where it's like, it's a conversational thing instead of me taking 20 to 30 minutes and explaining what wheelchair rugby is about. People know about it.
So we'll see Chuck Aoki Jr. on the side of Wheaties box. We'll have the Bent Axle sports book. Like, it'll be a full economy of wheelchair rugby. We'll have Nike tires.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. All these future potential sponsors, I hope they're watching, because a lot of potential business can come out of this. Yeah. They might make thousands of dollars.
I don't want to tell you too much about my dreams and fantasies about the sport, but keep
it PG.
We'll keep it PG.
Okay.
Rugby fantasies right here with Mike. So I would love for the league to really be the core of this sport, and I think that this has been such a great grassroots project for so long, whether it's Seattle doing fundraisers every year, and Shepherd doing road races that fundraise for their organization, and moments where we go out into the community and go to the Abilities Expo and stuff. I would really, really like us to be more part of the funding to help teams out, whether it's giving grants for jerseys or giving grants for, flying away to their first international tournament or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking really cool stuff. Wouldn't it be great if a team like Portland goes and plays in Amsterdam and faces off against developmental teams from Germany and Poland and Russia and things like that. That builds up the league, bringing back force, really, really building up the things that we've played with before, but making them concrete things that we know every year it's going to be there next year. I don't want, Eric Jr. to be coming along and he doesn't know if Team Force is going to be around next year. So he's just going to push really, really hard and hope that his team makes it to nationals. No, you should be able to go around the world and and be that athlete that you want to be if you have the right support and the right development and the right coaches around you.
So, I mean, going back to having the full ecosystem, right? I think we have, a patchwork of things now. And like you said, it's mostly at a very grassroots level. I think having the full complement of a professional ecosystem, and however that looks, I think is what will aid that in becoming reality. So, moving on to the last few questions here. You are a sports fan. Sometimes I hear you saying stuff about baseball or something.
Cleveland
What?
Spiders.
Yeah, I'm sure that's like a bocce team or something. So, as a sports fan, what do you want to see in wheelchair rugby to make it better for other sports fans?
Oof. See, that goes down the ability road and function. And I think that people always worry about that being a slippery slope. Is it just going to be a bunch of individuals with paraplegia playing this sport in a few years? And I see that the high-low is really strong these days. It's really like shown itself to be a great lineup. It's no longer a balanced lineup. It's no longer deuces across the board. It's really turned into, you've got some high functioning athletes on top. And then if you don't have really smart quads in those low pointer positions, then nothing happens. Like, those are the folks that are really making the team what it is. I mean, if you take Chad and Lee away from Arizona, I'm sure you'll find some folks that want to step into those roles. But would they be as dominant if you didn't have those two guys? They're brilliant. They're amazing athletes. Where do I see the sport going, though, really?
What do you want to see it to make it better for sports fans?
That's a tough question.
Alcohol served at tournaments, I think, is the
obviously
default.
that would make it a lot better. Like, I thought it was great when Ability 360 had a bar at Nationals a few years ago. It made those late night games even better for me. I think that just, making it something that people can gravitate around. I think the sport is great. I think it's great the way it is, and it'll evolve. But I think that more people in the stands and charging people, making people think that, wow, I'm going to something elite here. That, people think that if it's free, it sucks. And I think that, yeah, we don't want to charge our grandma to go to our events.
I mean, depends on who your
But she's
grandma
got to
is.
pay. She's got to pay. But just making it more of a showcase, making it something that people can get around. I mean, you look at what MLS has done on the West Coast. It is insane what those Seattle and Portland fans do. They are into it. And that was something that started off more grassroots. They made it a show. They made it a spectacle. So I want to see that in our sport. I want to see.
In that, another sport that's coming up from the grassroots is Major League Rugby. I don't know if you've been paying attention to that, but that's another thing that they're building a culture around those teams that, started from almost nothing. And I think they're up to like 12 or 16 teams now pre-COVID hitting. So I think there's models that we could follow to make that happen. So, okay, last few questions here. Who's your favorite current rugby athlete and why? Let's hurt some feelings here. Let's do this.
Okay, so I've got a lot of crushes in the league. Jesus. Can I throw out Joe Delagrave as one of my favorites of all time?
I would not be surprised if you did.
Yeah, I got a little crush on him.
We'll get
Chuck
him.
Aoki.
We'll get you some autographed T-shirts.
I know.
Go to Ben Axel's shop and get yourself a Ben Axel T-shirt, and then we'll ship it to get signed. Of course, you pay all the shipping too. But
yeah.
all right. So you've got All right, Joe Delagrave,
Joe
fine.
Delagrave and Chuck Aoki. And I mean, here's the thing. I went to thank you very much for sending me, by the way, to US tryouts a few years ago. And I think it's just something about being around that level of an athlete. Like for me, like it's like meeting a major leaguer, like seeing these guys like in person. And guys like Chuck and Joe, I would even throw Chuck Melton out there.
Oh, you can't throw like all of USA. I said pick one.
Pick one.
All right,
Okay.
we'll stick with Joe Delagrave. I think you've gone down that rabbit hole.
I have gone down that
Okay.
hole.
All right. So last formal question here. What is the best play you've ever seen in wheelchair rugby?
Oh my God. So are we talking about on the international level?
I don't care.
Okay. Ever.
Ever.
So I was watching this just a second ago to remind myself if it was the best thing I've ever seen. And it really is the transition of Wheeler to Aoki against Japan. Just that
Sports Center play?
Oh my God. It was so cool. And I've seen some plays like at the US KRA level, and it's spectacular seeing something that great at that level. But this was just like, this was calling your shot and hitting it over the right field wall. I mean, it was just phenomenal. Hands down, best thing I've ever seen.
All right, we'll have to get you an autographed Wheeler t-shirt as well. So
Right?
you're going to have a lot of self-paid for Bent Axle t-shirts here any day. All right. That's all I've got. You got anything you want to sprinkle on at the end here?
Joe Delagrave.
Save that for your wheelchair rugby player calendar. All right. Where can people go to hear more of your voice, probably gawking over Joe Delagrave?
Well, there's Behind the Axle that comes out every month or so with Chris and Dave. So we've got a Facebook page. We don't really have a web page or anything like that. We're still pretty grassroots.
Bentaxle.com/podcast actually will direct you there. So
nice.
Don't worry.
Nice.
We've got you covered.
Good feeder. Yeah, you can hear my voice there. Sometimes people like you are kind enough to invite my voice and my apparently rough-looking face on a Saturday morning.
It's the pandemic. Oh
my God, I'm gonna go take a nap or something.
I mean, as long as you're wearing a shirt, that's all that really matters.
I mean, I was on the train the other day, and it was a shirt-free day, and I'm just like, guys, that's fabric behind you. Those seats have fabric on them. So gross.
Soaking in the flavor. All right. That's it for today, ending on that weird note. Mike, thanks for joining us, and look forward to see what the next interview we have is. I don't even know yet. That's how much of a mystery it is. So have a good day, everyone, and thanks for stopping by the Bent Axle.
Hey, thanks, Eric. Appreciate it.